Yeah, why don't we jump into things? Franciska, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, your background, and your role at Amplitude?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Franciska. I started my career in venture capital and then sort of randomly joined Snowplow Analytics, a data startup, as their first marketing hire. Wanted a change, thought, why not marketing? And then built the marketing team there from scratch. Learned a whole lot, went to another data company and started doing the same there. Snowplow initially was a very sales-led company, very sort of traditional enterprise sales with a strong open source component, which was really helpful from a growth marketing perspective. Then I joined another data startup called Iteratively. I started building up the marketing team there, or broader growth team. We were very product-led there, tried to be. So lots of good learnings there. Then we were snapped up by Amplitude last year. And so I actually joined Amplitude as part of that acquisition, and started initially in the product org because of the acquisition. Very quickly realized I did not want to change careers and become a PM. So moved into, it's no fun. I'm just kidding. It's different. Then I spent the last 6-8 months in various departments at Amplitude focused on product-led growth. Most recently now setting up our growth marketing team at Amplitude, which is kind of scary that we did not have a proper function for growth marketing in the past. But essentially my remit now is owning acquisition, activation, engagement, and monetization, very closely with our product growth team on the self-serve side, and with the marketing and sales team on the sort of enterprise side. So really sort of trying to balance our sales-led model with our product-led model. And very quickly on Amplitude, you may be familiar, we are a product analytics tool. We have a free plan. We have a scholarship program where we get startups in on a free version of our growth plan. But we don't have any self-serve checkout right now. We're experimenting with that at the moment. But so we are relatively sales-led with a great product-led foundation. So balancing those aspects is something that's very top of mind for me. And then I do some advising on the side for smaller startups in the data and dev space.
Awesome, thanks, Franciska. So I see a couple questions filtering on the side here. People can feel free to speak up at any time, but Ben, would you mind kicking us off with maybe the first question? Let's see here, but I'll give you a sec to ask it yourself if you'd like. I'll ask you here. So Ben's question is, what is making Amplitude retry self-serve? Sounds like they removed it many years ago.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We started as a very product-led business way back, very focused on SMB and Corp. And I think like any company, you go on a journey, right? And you start selling larger and larger contracts, and you realize what the opportunity is there on the higher end Corp and enterprise side, and you hire more people, you get more of these contracts, and so you really build out that muscle. I think what happened with us and with many other companies is that you can't focus on everything, and so you start shifting the business towards a more sales-led model, and might sort of lose touch with some of the product-led aspects that you used to have. And so I think what we're currently doing at Amplitude is that we're trying to swing the pendulum back a little bit and make sure now we are a bigger company. We went public last year. We have an opportunity to invest in both motions and have them coexist. And so that's the opportunity that we see in front of us, making sure that we cater to all companies, regardless of where they are in their journey. And what we've seen from sort of analysis on some of our biggest customers today, they started out, right, very small contracts, small startups just getting started, taking a bet on Amplitude, us taking a bet on them, and now they pay us, significant amounts today, being big enterprises themselves.
Super helpful. The question comes up a lot here, Franciska, right? Which is like, when is the right time to roll out a PLG model internally, or when is the right time to try self-serve? And we definitely hear that it varies from company to company. So it's always helpful to hear in Amplitude's instance, what that journey's been like. I see a hand raise. Ophir, did you have a question that you want to ask here? Or was that?
Yeah, I did. It is a hand raise. Thanks. So it's a two-part question, but related. The first one is we're a startup of around 70 people, and recently switched from sales-led to also incorporating product-led. And I want to know, from your experience, what are the most impactful or the kind of areas which get the most bang for the buck in terms of really ramping up that product-led growth? There's so many different things we could do in initiatives. So I'm wondering, like, what are the best things to focus on? And the second part of the question, which is related, is how to help kind of upper management want to put more resources into the initiatives, which will ultimately lead to product-led growth.
Yeah, I think the first one, I would definitely focus on activation and engagement, so retention, because without that, you don't really have a user base to monetize or engage with. So making sure that you have a healthy activation rate, that you have a healthy retention rate, that you understand how you get users activated and retained would be one of my number one priorities. And then in terms of LT or leadership buy-in, I think, at least from my experience, we have to show revenue. We're a public company, so maybe it's a little bit different for us here. Like, we have to show that there is significant revenue impact from the activities that we're doing. And sometimes we have to include some assumptions in those. But they always have to be, informed by the data that we have available, and show that we can really move the needle with what we're working on, especially in the current climate. Has to be a significant upside for the business to make further investments.
Awesome, thanks. Let's see, Vishal, would you nice seeing you again, mind asking your question here?
Nice seeing you too, Ryan. Franciska, thank you. So the context of the question is, for companies where the free usage, the growth plan usage, or even this early self-serve usage that Amplitude might be putting forward attracts teams that themselves are not interested in the enterprise, how have you thought about making the jump from taking that initial usage on the self-serve or free plan and then translating those results to some kind of messaging to a more senior economic buyer and tying yourself to potentially their initiatives? How do you sort of cross that chasm from a team that's frankly very cheap and loves the free product to educating a more senior buyer?
In the same account, or you're talking about different buyers at the end of the day?
So in the same company, and assume that the account within that company, the self-serve account or free account, is full of very junior folks, right? There's no senior person in the mix. It's a bunch of junior folks who, either expense it on their credit card or are loving the fact that they have to pay nothing.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I don't think we have solved that yet. I have some thoughts and ideas and things that we want to work on. So for us, it's about understanding who are the product qualified leads in an account. So who are the ones that are using the product, who are excited about it, and then do they correlate with a buyer? Generally, like you said, there are ways where there is no buyer in the account. And so what we want to implement at some point, hopefully very soon, is that we have our sales and marketing team go figure out who are the buyers in that account. So we can surface what the users are doing and who they are, what their titles are, the behaviors that they what they do in the product, and then we rely on marketing and sales and go after the buyer. Thing would be related to how they're using the product today and how they could further expand their uses of the product. So we have a generous free plan that lets you do a lot of things without having to upgrade. So we have to focus our messaging on like, hey, here are some of the premium features that you don't have access to today. Here's how you can benefit from them if you upgrade. And by the way, you have like 15 users on the free plan with Amplitude right now. So classic sort of, hey, here's what your team is doing. Should we have a conversation about it?
Makes sense. Thank you.
I think maybe one thing that's good to add, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Aaron. I'm from Monday.com, and we have actually a very, very similar sales cycle. This is a process that we already went through for quite some time. I think one of the big things to realize is even if you put it on yourself as a manager, director, VP, anybody that leads people, I think probably most of us on the call getting bombarded with emails about invites for specific platforms. And most likely 90% of us removes that email without even reading it. Now think about somebody from your team coming to you and telling you, hey, this is something that's really valuable for me. In the end, those people that are starting off signing up to your account, regardless whether they're the decision makers or the economic buyers, are the people that help you to get there. You don't necessarily need somebody that is an economic buyer in the account to start with. Of course, the ideal scenario is to have them there already. But when you start with somebody that really loves the product, you're immediately eliminating a lot of concerns from the decision makers. Is it a platform that people will use? Yes, because they came through the sell funnel and they're actually utilizing the platform. That's a huge concern that almost everybody has higher up. You have what we call champion. You have somebody in the account that actually helps you to connect and build relationships with other people in the organization. So I would take it even a step further and say you don't need to wait until there is a decision maker in the account. Having those people that actually love your platform is your bridge to connecting to the decision makers. A good way to do that is they are working with them, right? So like one of the questions that's really good to ask is, how are you reporting to your manager? What are pains that your manager experiences so that you can pull them into the process, focus specifically on value?
That's awesome input, Aaron. Great organizational management. I like that. Aditya, I'll turn things over to you. So you got your hand raised here.
Hey, Franciska. So one quick question was, now that, Amplitude is moving towards, from a conventional sales strategy to a PLG strategy, do you think there would be a different pricing strategy for the products, maybe more customized pricing strategy for different accounts or based on the different personas?
Yeah, we have a big pricing and packaging work stream ahead of us. I think we have to do a lot there to continue expanded enterprise while also catering to SMB and expanding our self-serve motions. You have to do that. I can't share any sort of thing specifically here, but we are playing around with usage-based pricing and just generally more entry-level plans that take our users or accounts on a journey as they get started, and as they expand with us, we make sure that they grow with us and are able to. I think one thing that we benefit from now, being a much bigger company than any company I worked with in the past, is that we're now multi-product. So we have a whole new range of levers to pull here and different ways that people can land with Amplitude and expand with Amplitude. So it's not like it becomes easier, but there are many more ways that we can expand once we have an account in our product, which is kind of exciting, but also very challenging because now it's an even more complicated customer journey that we have to account for.
Awesome. I think that actually segues really well into this next question that Arvind asked here. Arvind, I'll let you kind of reiterate what you shared here.
Sure.
But great question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Hi, Franciska. Thanks. Nice to meet you. Yeah, actually, kind of a bit of a follow up from a couple of questions ago. Just would really love to hear a bit more, or have you add some color on how you folks and how your team decides when an account is growing, when sort of the right time to maybe hand that account over to the sales team in a bit more of a traditional sales motion, and if you even do that, if you still try and have the sales team and the growth team work hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually just launching our first version of our PQA model right now. So we're really lucky. Like I used to work in a startup, so I'm like, oh, we have a data science team. That's like, not everyone has that, and that's where tools like Correlated and others can be really helpful. But we work with our data science team to build a simple model looking at accounts that converted to one of our paying plans versus those who did not, and look at what behavior correlates with conversion. And so now we have a really good idea of the kind of behaviors. We had a pretty good idea in the first place, like very like high level. The more events you send to Amplitude, our free plan only has 10 million events. So once you're over that, you will either convert or you will abuse our free plan and probably never convert. The number of users, once you're above, I think it's like 6 or 7, you have a significant mass of usage and base within the company, depending on the size, obviously. And then we have things like what's the depth and how often do people go into, or users go into Amplitude on a weekly cadence. So we're more of like a daily frequency almost. So we actually look at retention 4 out of 7 days in a week. You got to be in Amplitude to be what we call a weekly consuming org. And then there are other things that we sort of had to build in the model a little bit, like how much time do you spend the first week setting up Amplitude, or what kind of data source did you connect initially? If you connected in Particle, I don't know if people are familiar, but if you connected with an expensive data platform tool, you might have more budget than if you are doing it all from scratch. So like, what are some of the behaviors that we can identify and then surface those to sales? We're still figuring out the timing. So we built the model, we have a score. We're surfacing now accounts to the sales team alongside a playbook of how to engage with these accounts. I think that's a really crucial part, because in the past we've been, at least internally, sometimes just passing, from growth, passing leads to sales, and then they'll figure it out. But we need to make the data available to the sales team. How are they using the product today? What are they doing? What are they not doing? How can you have a conversation about further expanding the usage? And then go from there. The other thing that we want to layer in as well that we haven't done yet is obviously demographic data. So we use things like CSMs and Amplitude to inform whether we also think that from a demographic perspective, these companies are our target buyers that will actually pay for Amplitude. Because there will be accounts that we should just leave alone. They're happy on the starter plan. They won't upgrade until they're further along their journey or have raised more money or more revenue, etc.
Awesome, thanks. John Little, great question here, and I think I've seen some other folks reiterate a question like this. John, I'll give you an opportunity to ask it yourself.
Thank you. I think this is kind of related to what we're talking about. Currently, we have a sales-led motion, and we're opening up a product-led motion. And so with the 2 motions you have there, are you using different pipelines for that? Like as the leads come down, because they look like they're hitting different markets. So are you using completely different pipelines, or do you converge the pipelines? What's happening there?
You mean like sales pipelines?
Yes.
Or yeah. I mean, we have one massive sales pipeline today, because everything at the end of the day is sales led when it comes to monetization. So you can think of our free plan maybe as like a lead gen tool, right? Like a hunting ground for our sales team. And so everything eventually has to come through the same funnel. Your question makes me think a little bit about how we also report on these different metrics, because as soon as you split your funnel in the sense that now you have leads that will go to sales right from the beginning, they will inquire, they will download a white paper, they will contact sales, you will nurture them, you will talk to them, and you will convert them. Classic sales funnel. Now you have a product where there are different metrics that you want to report on, like how many new signups do you have? At Amplitude, we care about new relevant signups, which we quantify as people who sign up with a business domain, so not personal emails. We assume that personal emails are less likely to want to use Amplitude for business reasons. And then we want to report on activation. How many of those that we sign up actually activate on the product, send us some data, start using the product, and then how many of those enter that PQA model that we have and turn into product qualified accounts that we can surface to sales and then put into the same pipeline again. So right now it's a little bit of a split journey that we think of, but in my mind, it's all interconnected because you can sign up for or you can register for a webinar and then we can try to push you into the product, or we can try to have you talk to sales. So I think ideally at some point at Amplitude, we have it as one funnel all the way through, and the product just plays a big crucial role across that journey. But right now we still have to think a little bit split brain that a lot of the larger accounts that we try to go after might never touch the product and probably never should, because they need a lot of hand holding and we want to do it right with them through proper onboarding and implementation. I hope that answered your question. I don't know if that was almost like two journeys that combine at some point.
That's really great. Thank you.
Awesome. So Miles asked a good question here. He said he doesn't have mic, so I'll read it for him. What qualification methodologies are Amplitude's sales dev and AE teams deploying in addition to product signals?
Can you say that again? Sorry. So is it firmographic data that we rely on?
So that's how I'm kind of reading into things here. And Miles, feel free to comment if there's additional context. Yeah. So the question is, what qualification methodologies is Amplitude's sales dev and AE teams deploying in addition to product signals? So are there perhaps, like firmographic or demographic qualifications that you're also looking in addition to product?
Yeah, we actually have a pretty old school MQL model in place today. So I don't know if it's old school. I feel sometimes a bit old school because it actually does not include product usage behavior there. It's really based on, we use Mack, which is a helpful sort of enrichment tool. So Mack gives us a score that is partly how we identify whether a lead is good. It fits our criteria. So there's tons of data that goes into that. Is it like in a data team, a growth team, a product team? Where in the world are they? Revenue or funding, industries. So we have a pretty good idea of who buys Amplitude, where they are, who they are. And then the other part is a behavioral score, which is actually based on how people are interacting with our website, with our content, webinars, with our marketing emails. And from that, we score them and we MQL them and pass them on to our sales team, who then does outreach and turns them into sales opportunities or bring them back into our nurture program.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see here. I think we answered some of these here. I'll touch on this one, Ashu. I think we explored some of this, but Franciska, let me know if there's anything else that comes to mind. So Ashu had elaborated on another question that we were chatting about before and asked, how do you approach those decision makers? And we were talking about multi-threading within an organization. Say we have exposure to a champion and we want to, connect with some of those decision makers in it. How are we doing that? Is it through the outbound sales motion? Are you really leaning on some of those like warm intros, or a combination of both?
Yeah, we have a big sales team at Amplitude and we do a lot of outbound, and however you quantify outbound versus inbound or outbound of existing accounts. This is less my area of expertise on the sales side, but as an example, I spoke to an SDR in our expansion team yesterday, and she actually goes out and talks to business units in like our big accounts that are using Amplitude today, and she does much of her sourcing on LinkedIn and through just pure outbounding for these large enterprises. So outbound plays a huge role, whether it's sort of warm in the sense we're already using Amplitude, or they have another business unit using Amplitude, or they have a free account, whatever it is. But sales and sales outreach is a huge part of our go-to-market strategy.
Awesome, thanks. So we got time for one, maybe two more, depending on this next one. But Jeremy, Jeremy from sunny London, Jeremy says, Jeremy, would you like to ask your question here?
Yeah, hi, Franciska. I'm just interested in your thoughts on how we go. We're a startup. We'll be PLG from the beginning. I'm minded to think that we'll need lots of sales muscle to get the flywheel kind of turning in the first place. But I don't want to kind of lose PLG focus or form the wrong habits in the medium to long term. What's your experience been in terms of kind of cohabiting sales-led and product-led, and trying to maintain product-led as your North Star?
Yeah, I think it's about having the right metrics at the leadership level and looking at the important data points every week. Like, are we still getting people into the product? Are they activating? Are we growing that side? And then having self-serve revenue be one of the North Stars that the PLG teams, wherever that is growth or marketing or a product or a mix, really own and expand on. And then have shared pipeline goals with the sales team around how much revenue should come from self-serve and how much revenue should come on top of self-serve and your free motion if you have one. So collaborating with sales and empowering the sales team. I think one of the things that we've struggled with, and that now there are tools that help you do, is give the data to the salespeople. If they don't know what people are doing in the product, how can they leverage the product in the sales journey? And I think that's where you lose touch with your PLG roots, because sales doesn't have visibility. And so they're not going to be able to use the product. And so you will lose that more and more, and you will hire more sales rep. The sales rep will use their sales playbook, so on and so forth. So it's from the beginning, data, arming the sales team, having them use your product, like understand the product and focus on what we call product-led sales, right? Like selling using the product and bringing the value and the product front and center in the conversations.
Cool. Really good answer.
Awesome. Well, we're at time, Franciska. This was awesome. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. For the crew here, if they want to, find you, follow you, and follow some more of this thought leadership, where's the best place to do that? LinkedIn. Yeah. Don't have much time to write or anything, but always happy to jump on a call and exchange notes and talk about this stuff. It's fun. Awesome. Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, have a great next 2 weeks. Thanks much. Thank you, everyone. Bye.